Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, community coach, podcaster, and author. And we have a special guest on the show. I heard him speak at the Alpharetta Rotary, and I wanted to get him on our show because there's a lot of information, or a lot of people are asking about peptides. Necessarily know what it is, but they hear the word over and over again. And so it's good to have somebody who has devoted his journey to helping people with this. So, Brad, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into our podcast.
Sure. I'm a health and longevity coach, but I specialize in peptide therapy. So what that really means is I take the traditional health and wellness supplements, sleep, detoxing, diet, exercise, nutrition, that type of stuff, but then I marry it with peptides and try to help anybody that is looking to potentially, fix something that's going on in their body that they've been frustrated with. They've been taking medications that don't seem to be solving the problem. They just are kind of covering up the symptom, trying to get to the root cause of things. We use peptides to try to help bodies perform better, heal better, just function better, so that we're healthier in the long run.
I love when you said longevity coach. And, we have one body, and if we don't take care of it, it ain't going to take care of us. So, how did you get into what you're doing right now?
Well, it was not on purpose. It wasn't a conscious effort to do what I'm doing. I was in a car accident about almost 2 years ago, and I had herniated a disc in my lower back and was unable to really do a lot of the physical things that I had grown up doing. I was a college volleyball player, coached collegiate volleyball. I was a CrossFit coach, very into CrossFit in my 40s and whatnot, and then just got into this accident and wasn't able to do a lot of those things that I had wanted to do or been able to do, and consequently, with age, I started gaining weight. I couldn't keep my diet to where, keto and all the things that I'd tried previously just weren't working. And I gained a bunch of weight, probably 50 plus pounds, got into the pre-diabetic range with my A1C. I was, high cholesterol, previously been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, you name it. I probably have done it. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease in the past. And I was really just looking for ways to, not take a bunch of medications. And so I just went down the path of learning about peptides. And I think, my sister or somebody had mentioned, these research peptides. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so I started learning about them, and lo and behold, I started using them, and just my health dramatically improved within 6 months of doing this. And, people of course came up to me and started asking me what I was doing. And I started talking about peptides, and they were like, oh yeah, I'm taking those collagen peptides. And I'm like, that's not really, not really what we're talking about here. But, a lot of people use the word peptides in a lot of different ways, but it's, they're not traditional, technically peptides. They're just kind of a protein or something, something else. But a lot of people don't know what peptides are, why they're important to your body, and how they can really help, do massive things for your health.
There is a lot about out there, and I know a lot of people that I don't know. It's GL to what is that kind of that injection that people are taking by the pharmaceuticals. It's called
GLP-1. So the GLP-1s are the big. I think that is what we can credit the peptide world explosion to is the GLP-1 class of medications that they're specifically weight loss or used for weight loss drugs. They are peptides, and so people are starting to learn that wow, these peptides really can do a lot of things now. Some of those GLP-1s don't do things in the way that I would, like them to do for our body's sake, but they have kind of opened people's eyes to peptides. And, there's thousands of different peptides in your body. naturally running through there. We liken it to, again, hormones in your body. As you age, the amount of peptides that are in your body, decrease naturally. And so, I like to say what we're doing is peptide replacement therapy. We're actually just putting the peptides back into your body so your body can function like it did when it was 20 or 30. When you were young, you healed super quickly. It's because you had, a plethora of these peptides that are, these healing peptides that are naturally found in your body. The beauty of peptides is they are just a signaling molecule to your body, but your body already has them in them, already knows what to do when they see the signal. So it's not like a drug or a medication that's forcing your body to do something. These are, again, natural occurring molecules in your body. Your body sees it. It turns on a cell. I like to talk to it like a lock and key system, right? So you've got a receptor on a cell that's sitting there just hanging out, waiting for, something to come by and turn that lock. And the peptides are that key. And there's a specific key for a specific lock for a specific receptor. So if that specific key doesn't fit that lock, it just floats on by until it finds the one that it fits and turns. That's why peptides have very little side effects. You're not going to find them forcing your body to do things it naturally doesn't want to do. And therefore your body just does what it's supposed to do. It heals itself. It does whatever it is. And there aren't a lot of side effects.
You mentioned something which I thought I had heard similar things, but I never heard it said that way, that the GLP, I have to get that down, GLP-1 would take care of the muscle. So you would find people, they would lose weight, but it was like putting skin on a skeleton because they didn't look healthy. What does peptides do differently than that weight loss strategy?
So there's a couple things. So the GLP-1s basically, there's a couple different classes, if you will, of GLP-1. There's what they call a GLP-1, which is your original single agonist. Ozempic, Wegovy are those two. It's a molecule called semaglutide, and it actually just basically tells your brain that you're full, slows down your gastric emptying. So essentially you're taking in fewer calories, right? So what happens is you take in the fewer calories, your body goes into starvation mode. When your body goes into starvation mode, it looks at you and says, oh, I've got this fat here. Fat's my best source of energy. I want to save that until I really need it. And then it looks over and says, there's this muscle over here that's actually burning extra calories. We know muscle is our best metabolic tool for longevity. So our body kind of flips that on us and says, that's actually burning extra energy that I might need later. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that muscle first. So I'm going to burn that muscle, bone, connective tissue, all the other things other than fat. So by the time you get to burning the fat off, you've already burned through all that muscle and bone, connective tissue. So everybody's seen it. You can call it the Ozempic phase. You can call it whatever you want to. But when people lose a lot of weight on those GLP-1s, they have no muscle left. They have no bone structure left. So they do really look like a skeleton with skin on it. And everybody's seen it. And so, they say, oh, you need to eat a lot of protein and you need to lift and all that kind of stuff, which is very important when you're on those medications. But they do have a new class of GLP-1. It's going to be, I guess, referred to as GLP-3, if you will. That's called retatrutide. And it does things a lot differently. And it's going to be coming out. FDA approval is third stage right now. And it's going to change kind of how things work. It does a lot more with fat metabolism versus, eating up muscle and things like that. But to your point earlier, there are a lot of peptides out there that can do a lot of this stuff without having to go down the FDA approval, doctor prescription medication route. We can build muscle. We can metabolize fat more efficiently. We can heal our mitochondria. ATP energy production is a huge problem in aging people. We just don't have the cellular energy to perform some of this stuff, which then leads to insulin resistance, which then leads to chronic inflammation, which then leads to disease, all that kind of stuff. So we can definitely use some of these other peptides to help reduce those factors. And then once we've reduced those factors, we're just way less likely to get sick.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. A journey, starts with that first decision to do something about it. I remember when, after your talk, a gentleman came up and he was asking you some questions, and he said, yeah, I could definitely look to lose 20, 25 pounds. So what does that journey look like? I come to you and I say, yes, I want to start. So what does that journey look like for the listeners out there to understand? Are they like talking to you forever? Are they on in peptides forever? Or is it a reduced thing? What does that journey look like?
So the journey starts, like you said, the journey starts with a single step, right? So on my website, I've got what I call a biological analysis report. I'll offer that to anybody that wants to kind of see what's going on in their body. You go on the website, you fill out the information. It'll go through all of your habits, whether it's diet, exercise, your nutrition, obviously, but any medications, supplements, just everything that we would like to know about what's going on with your health currently. And then I build a report basically saying, hey, it looks like we've got some insulin resistance, we've got some leaky gut health issues going on over here, we've got these kind of things, and then we've got peptides that can help this, and then like we talk about what we can do, time frames on, is it 6 months from now, or is it 12 months from now, are we going to see the improvements, or is it next week, are we going to see improvements? Some things we can see improvements in pretty quickly. And then once we start doing that, everybody has their own timeline. I plan to be using peptides as long as I possibly can. I mean, I probably will be on them for the rest of my life unless something better comes along, for lack of a better word. I don't know what could be better than something naturally that's found in your body.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people start with me and they say, yeah, how long do I have to be on these? And I say, that's a question everybody asks. But at the end of the day, people, after they see the results, they're like, why wouldn't I want to do this for my body for the rest of my life? And so I can see that. I see a change in the mentality of people from that first conversation to, 6 or 12 months down the road. They're feeling great. They're being healthy. And they're like, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing this because I'm feeling great and my body's responding. And why wouldn't I want to keep myself here? If I stop doing this, yes, you're not going to go back to where you were right away, but eventually, you're going to creep back that direction. So it's a very easy thing to do to kind of maintain, your health and longevity.
That's awesome. Our community is worldwide. We do podcasts all over. So if somebody is like, I have a gentleman in Poland, and somebody hears you, how can they take action that they're so far away? Is there a way for them to get what they need through Brad over there, or is it strictly US?
Well, I guess I don't know enough about international laws and peptide availability and things like that. Here in the US, peptides they're kind of, they're in that supplement range, if you will. They're in a world of, they're not they're not able to be prescribed by doctors for the most part. There are a few that have a FDA approval for certain uses and things like that, but for the most part, again, they're naturally occurring molecules, so they can't be patented. So big pharma is not going to put them through FDA approval because they won't be able to make the money back on the other end. So really, it's a matter of how do you get them. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, depending on who you're talking to, in our world, it's research use only peptides, and that's typically what you see out there. Sourcing is important, but I don't know enough about international laws to know if can they be imported in Poland or that type of thing, and that would be something that would have to be looked at their end. Now, I could coach somebody from here. I have lots of clients all over the country that I do talk with, and we Zoom call, and I can show them anything that we need to show physically. I can show them over over Zoom and over the computer.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do it pretty much anywhere that they can get access to the peptides. I have a source that all my clients use that we trust and things like that. But again, out of the country, I don't know every country and their laws and things like that. So we'd have to kind of see.
Yeah, that my next question, you answered it partly, but I'd like you to go a little bit deeper. So, around the United States, to be able to access you, that's is the boundaries and territories don't matter because you can do what you need to do to consult them, whether Zoom, and they can get peptides. Is it injection? Is it a pill? How do they get those peptides that you're, helping them with?
So yeah, so it's really hard to get online and not stumble over a website selling peptides these days. I mean, it seems like there's a million of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to do is I've vetted the source that we get our peptides from, myself and my clients. I've used a lot of different sites. I've done a lot of different things, but the specific things that I look for are quality third-party testing from reputable sources. There's the leading testing lab out there is called Janishik Labs, and I don't use sites that don't use Janishik Labs as their third-party testing facility. I just
Mm-hmm.
know they're the best, and so we only focus on people that sell that. To answer your question about injection versus oral, I use exclusively injections. Now, again, we talked a little bit about that key and that lock system from before.
Mm-hmm.
Peptides are short chain amino acids. They're simply a amino acid chain between 2 and 50 amino acids long. Your gut, the beauty of our digestive system is that it works really well, and the main job of your digestive system is to break down proteins and amino acids. So as soon as that amino acid hits your stomach, it's getting broken down into unrecognizable pieces. That key no longer will fit that lock once it gets digested and broken down. So we want to get that into our bloodstream, bypassing our digestive system. So we're going to use a sub-Q injection that is the most bioavailable way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these peptides can be done in a nasal spray. Some of the peptides are too long. The nasal barriers are only so permeable. So if you have a peptide that's too long, too large, it won't be able to get through that layer and get into the bloodstream. So there you have to be careful. A lot of people selling oral peptides and peptide sprays that have no idea that they probably know, but they don't care that peptide's never going to reach where it's supposed to get. They just sell it because they can make money doing it and things like that. So for the majority of everything I do, I really suggest and stress that we're going to use sub-Q injections. Some people are a little bit scared of that, but as soon as they do it, that insulin needle is so tiny and it doesn't hurt, and they get so used to it, and it's just really a non-issue once you get past it. And it's the best way to do it. And yeah, it's as far as I'm concerned, it's the only way. Now they're always coming out with, there's a nano coating that we use to get it through your digestive system and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, if there's a plastic or some sort of coating out there that's going to get it through my digestive system, I'm not sure I want to put that into my body. So, so I'm doing sub-Q injections until somebody can prove to me again that what they're doing is actually going to make it get into my bloodstream and do its job.
Yeah. And it's, there's a lot of information out there. I try to go to the source where people spend the necessary time to go deeper than the surface. And so obviously you're going deeper than the surface person out there that hears the word peptides and just may get misinformation and may be able to act on it. I want to go back to where you were sharing with us when you're 50 pounds overweight and you were, pre-diabetic. What was the difference between that and losing the 50 pounds? Did you notice energy? Did you notice feeling good? What was the results you felt after you went on that journey with peptides?
So, yeah, I have a lot of people that say, you lose the weight, you're going to feel better. And I think that's true to a certain extent, but I really felt like I felt better than I'd ever felt before. Now I know that I probably felt really great when I was 20, but I didn't know what it felt like to feel bad when I was 20.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my adult life, I've never felt better than I feel right now at 54 years years old. I mean, I was doing CrossFit and doing all this stuff, 10 years ago, and I was in great shape. I was in better shape than I am now then, but I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the, resilience, all the stuff that I have right now. And that has a lot to do with the, again, with the peptides, the energy, the ability to kind of just bounce back after a workout. I'm not as sore. There's a lot of different, peptides that we can use for a lot of different reasons. And I just, yeah, it was a night and day difference. If you would have taken 6 months, a 6 month window and said, when I started the journey versus where I was 6 months afterwards, I was a completely different person. Like I had so much energy. Again, everybody'd ask me, and I feel the best I've ever felt. It's hard to put words on, what that's worth to me or what that means to me as far as just being able to function on a daily basis at the highest level I possibly can.
Mm, that is good. I, had a stroke 4.5 years ago, and I gave up things, and I didn't realize what the benefits were going to be when I did that. I gave up sugar, I gave up alcohol, I gave up all these things that I felt, social media, all the mental and physical things I thought were holding me back. And then I got such mental clarity. Did you feel that you got better mental clarity after that 6 months, after that journey? Was that part of the results?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. And I think that you look at, what is it really, when we talk about mental clarity, is it the absence of what a lot of people call brain fog, that type of thing?
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I
Yeah.
think I think brain fog stems from, from inflammation in your brain, right? So you're talking about things, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sugar, things that are very, very inflammatory. And so
Hmm.
you're just inevitably reducing the inflammation in your brain. You're going to be just so much more clear. And we've got, again, peptides do that on a cellular level. We reduce systemic inflammation. We reduce insulin resistance at that cellular level, and yeah, your brain gets so much more clear. We also have nootropic peptides that actually can boost your brain derived neurotropic factor, your BDNF. We can actually boost brain cognition and brain function. There's people that have anxiety or that have ADHD or that have some sort of learning differences or things that are going on in their brain. We can actually help to make your brain function better, just using some of these simple signaling molecules.
Hmm.
So there's just a ton of different things we can do, but yeah, mental clarity is just a huge piece of the puzzle. But there's just so many pieces of the puzzle.
It's so good. What would be like a myth that's out there about peptides that you see and you could clear up for our viewers?
Well, I think that one one thing is that you know there are so many people out there saying, I'm just going to pick one peptide in particular. It's probably the most common peptide outside of the GLP-1 family of peptides, called BPC 157. It's the Swiss Army knife of peptides. It does so many things for your body. It's derived from your human gastric juice. It seals up your gut. It reduces inflammation. It helps injury healing. It crosses a blood-brain barrier, so it's reducing that neuroinflammation like we're talking about. It's just doing so many things for you. But there's a whole slew of people out there. There's articles out there that are like, a BPC 157 causes cancer. It's like that. Everybody's trying to scare you away from using peptides, saying they cause cancer, they cause blindness, they cause this, they cause that. And there's no biological, you know, there's actually no biological or study showing that is the case. They just
Mhm.
say what they say. The reason they say that is because BPC 157 is going to promote angiogenesis, which is going to be new cell formation. They're saying, well, if you have these cancer cells in your body, which everybody does, it's just going to replicate and make more of these cancer cells, and it's going to propagate your cancer. And that's not how it works. That's not how it, on a biological level, that's not how it works. So I would say there are certain things that, if you have certain histories of medical history of certain things, there are some peptides maybe you don't want to use. And that's where, again, using a coach or using somebody that knows more about the peptides, how they work in your body, and then how some of those, some of those diseases and illnesses and things like that can affect your cells, is important because, again, everything isn't for everybody, but used properly, they can be very powerful tools.
That's so good. What we're seeing a lot of technology. There's a gentleman I listen to when it comes to health out there, Peter D. Manis, I think is how he pronounces his name. But he said like AI is changing so rapidly. We're figuring out things so quickly. What are you most excited about the world of AI and how it intersects with peptides?
Well, I love AI. I think it's great. I think there's, again, some danger with AI if you haven't trained AI, which most people don't train their AI, whether they're using Claude or they're using Chat GPT or whatever. They're using it mostly as a glorified Google, and so they go out and they ask Chat a question, or they ask Claude a question. The answer you're going to get from that isn't necessarily always the right answer. It's not necessarily the answer that you should take as gospel. I use AI a lot in my coaching. I have a vast, I've taken certification courses. I've taken lots of different. I've looked at research studies. I've done a lot of different things, and I've taken all that information and loaded it into my AI system, so that when I go in and I try to figure out what peptides are best for a specific client, it references all these different pages of information, all these different documents and things that I've gathered. I've gone in and also told it I like to use these peptides. I think these peptides are the best peptides for this or this, these kind of things. And it references all that material and then helps me develop a system for my clients. And so I love AI. I think it's great, but I don't think it's something that would replace a coach or somebody that really knows what they're doing, because everybody says, well, I can just go ask Claude what peptides to take and they'll tell me what to do. Yes, you could to a certain extent, but I wouldn't do that personally if that was me.
Now, my partner's an AI has an AI agency, and this was 4 or 5 years ago when AI was starting to be out there. And he'd say, Pete, how are you using AI? I said, I don't have time for that. And then I did one thing, and that moment came up. I just went, whoa, and that's impactful. That saves me time. That's valuable. What would you say, like when you're excited about the future of longevity, what would you share with our viewers of what you see coming that maybe some of us don't really see because of you're in this business, you're in this industry, you're learning about longevity, you're learning about, and understand peptides. What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm excited about I guess the whole movement of health and wellness seems like we're starting to shift. I think like it's moving more towards how do we get back to natural solutions to solving our health problems, because we've realized that the big pharma, the FDA, all the things that are going on aren't making us healthier. We are the sickest nation on the planet, like by a long shot. And managing the symptoms with medications are only making us sicker. And so how can we get back to using some of these tools that God's created, nature's created, natural remedies, whether it's vitamin C, whether it's nicotine. I know that's a bad word. I shouldn't say that. Nicotine is it's a nutrient found in nightshade vegetables. You're getting it all the time. You're eating potatoes, you're eating all the stuff. It's incredibly beneficial to you, but everybody out there will say, oh, it's addictive. It's been shown by Harvard, medical studies, things like that. It's not addictive on its own. When you put it with the 599, chemicals and carcinogens that are in tobacco or in cigarettes, that's when it becomes addictive. And it's not really even the nicotine that's the addictive part. But starting to, kind of peel back the layers on some of these natural remedies that people have been using for thousands of years, to say, hey, we can use some of these to help instead of medications and try to solve some of these root causes. I think that's where we're headed. I think we're headed towards more and more people wanting to not be on medications and really trying to, be more involved in their health. And one of my taglines and one thing I like to say is I try to help my clients become the CEO of their health. Like I really want them to take charge and don't just go to the doctor and be like, he says I have to take this medication, I'm going to take this medication. Look up what that medication does to you. How does it work? I mean, I was diagnosed with Barrett's esophagus, and they're like, hey, take this PPI, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was doing. So I was like, yeah, sure. It helped my acid reflux. It was, it helped me feel better. So I just took it. Well, as you start doing research, as you start to really get into it, you look at that like, wow, that's shutting down all my acid, you know, pumps in my whole system. Now my stomach doesn't have the right tools to break down the food the way it's supposed to, and all the different things. And you're like, I don't want to take this anymore. Like, how can I use some natural, things to help with, control my acid and help to heal my gut and help to heal things so I don't have to take these medications. And that's a really big driver for myself. And I see a lot of people really wanting to try to figure out a different way than medications to help.
That's so good. Being a competitive athlete, I always love the challenge that we have out there. How do you challenge yourself on a daily basis?
Well, talking athletics right now, boy, I started this the craze everybody else started too, right? I started playing pickleball, um, and that is challenging. I mean, everybody like on the outside, you look into that pickleball, you're like, oh, people just standing around, whatever with a paddle. But it can obviously get very physical, and
Yeah.
it's a super fun game. So that keeps me going on the physical side of thing. I've kind of passed my at 54. I've kind of passed my CrossFit, the days. I want to stay healthy, but I don't need to be trying to lift more and more weights and doing all the things. So I'm
Right.
trying to find something else to keep me, physically fit and physically engaged, trying to get better. And then, on a personal side, I think it's very important to continue, the education process and just constantly trying to learn more and more about everything, whether it's peptide related, or just health related. I try to come up with different, supplements and different things that can help, again, outside the peptide world, just to try to better round out, for my clients. Somebody might come in and say, I've got this going on, I've got this going on. Well, yeah, there's peptides that we can use, but also that, let's try this supplement as well, and kind of try to get, kind of a more well-rounded solution for them.
How I love that. How, when it comes to habits, we're always trying to have the positive habits. What's your morning routine look like that you could share with our viewers?
Yeah, so I started a while back, really trying to focus on sleep. And so like sleep is probably the most important thing you can do for your body. It's when you recover, it's when growth hormones released, it's when your body does its repair in a lot of different ways. So trying to focus on sleep is just so paramount for me. And in addition to, trying to set that consistent bedtime at night, the thing I do in the mornings is I get up in the morning and I try to get within 10 or 15 minutes of waking up. I try to get into natural light, whether it's right now what I do is I go sit down on my patio down outside in my backyard, and I put my feet on the ground. I take my shoes, slippers, whatever off. I put my bare feet on my grass. Usually it's a wet, dewy grass. Try to get some of that grounding energy from the earth. I sit out in the light, let my body start to wake up with that, natural circadian rhythm with the light. And, I do that for about 10 to 20 minutes, just depending on what my day, allows me to do. I'm a huge proponent of ice baths. But I'm not doing it currently, but it's something that I have done in the past and I want to get back to it. But I think that's a great way to either start your day or after a workout or whatever. I think that shocking your system with that extreme temperature is a super valuable tool. So those are kind of the routines that I like to do.
Oh, that's so good. So at 54, we learn things throughout life, and life teaches us lessons. So if you had to, like, you had a bottle and you could write a note to a 20-year-old Brad, what would that note be about? What would be something that would be helpful for a 20-year-old Brad?
I really think that, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I think just learning what we're putting in our bodies, what we're putting in our mouth, like pay attention to what you're putting in your mouth. And in this country, it's really hard because of all the 10,000 different chemicals that we can process food into our system. But yeah, whether it's alcohol, whether it's sugar, refined sugars, whether it's just ultra processed foods, things like that. I think that at 20 years old, you don't really care about that stuff because your body's working so well and it's doing all the
Mhm.
things. But that is the foundation of the start of decline. Is just the over time, that diet of just I don't want to call it food. Some of it's not even food, right? It's just chemicals and things. I would say, yeah, write a note and say, pay attention to what you're putting in your body.
Hmm. That's a good advice. Good advice. Now, I want to be respectful of your time. So tell our viewers one, I have one question after this. How can they get more of Brad?
So yeah, the first step, you could go out to the website, peptalkbrad.com. You can fill out the biological analysis information there. I can get in touch with you that way. I've got also Pep Talk with Brad Facebook page, Instagram page as well. Just started those. I wasn't a huge early proponent of being on social media, just because I know there's so much social media disinformation and things, and I didn't really want to open myself up to all the people commenting on things and kind of hating, if you will, and having to deal with all that kind of stuff. But then I realized that what, I think there does need to be a voice of reason, and there does need to be some good information being put out there. So I just started that recently. So those are ways that people can follow. I'll start doing more, videos and things like that. Right now, there's just a lot of informational posts and things that were started, but we're really trying to get some good information out there. Trying to help people sort through some of that scare tactic, some of that misinformation that's out there.
Yes, there's a lot out there. I was texting some of my friends, and I used to play golf, and there was some stuff out there about a golfer, and I'd send it to them, and they said, "Fake news, fake news," and they said, "I haven't seen it on this or this." So you don't, and they said, and they were kidding. They said, "Yeah, you think that anything that's on the internet is gospel?" And I said, so, you got to be careful because anybody can put anything out there, and you got to check your sources, and you got to be diligent with who you think are trusted experts that you can rely on and get your information from. So, what would be the one thing that you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
I would, I just would like people to take a long, hard look at what they're going through, in a health and wellness, aspect of their life. And are they really happy with what's going on, with what's happening with their, whether are they on medications that they don't want to be on? Are they, do they feel tired all the time? Are things going in the right direction, doing what you're doing? And I have a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm managing this with, this medication, I'm doing this or doing that or whatever. And it's like, are you moving in the right direction? If you are moving in the right direction, great. That's perfect. I'm okay with that. If you're not moving in the right direction, maybe it's time to try something else. Maybe it's
Hmm.
time to add something or do something a little different. That somebody said, that what's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, like, even things that worked for you in the past, and I see that a lot with my clients, is like, I'm doing the same thing I was doing for 30 years, for 20 years, it would work fine. And now the last 10 years, it hasn't worked. Well, that's because your body's changing and you've got more things going on that we need to address at that core cellular level. And once we do that, we can help. But yeah, I just, yeah. Are you moving in the right direction?
Mm, that's so good. Well, Brad, thank you so much for sharing your journey and what you're doing in the community because there's nothing better than our health. And we want to make sure that we're doing all the things we need to live longer, live a higher quality of life. And we appreciate what you're doing to bring that peptide message to our community and to our people out there that are wanting to know what it takes to live a long life and live a high quality life. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. I appreciate you having on. And I love what you just said there too. And it's not always about adding years to our life, but we want to add life to those years as well. And I think we can do both.
Yes, we can. Thank you.